Writing. The coffee cup slipped from my hand the moment she walked through the diner door. It shattered against the floor, but I barely heard it. After 10 years, I would have recognized that face anywhere. She stood beneath the flickering neon sign, older than the woman I remembered, carrying the same quiet sadness in her eyes. Then she looked straight at me and said, "You still remember my order." And somehow, those 6 words made 10 years disappear. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness can survive years of silence, that second chances sometimes arrive when we least expect them, please take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the person we think we lost forever is only waiting for the right moment to come back. 10 years earlier, I had been 27 and working every shift I could at my father's little diner on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous. The windows rattled whenever trucks passed outside, the kitchen fan made a terrible clicking sound, and the booths had been repaired so many times that Dad joked they had more history than the customers. But it was home. And every evening at exactly 6:15, she used to walk through the door. Her name was Claire. She always sat in the corner booth beside the window, ordered tomato soup, grilled cheese with extra pickles, and a cup of coffee with 2 sugars. She never changed her order. What did change was the expression on her face. Some nights she looked peaceful. Other nights she looked like she had spent the entire day fighting battles nobody knew about. I never asked too many questions. I simply brought her food, refilled her coffee, and sometimes left an extra piece of pie beside the check when I noticed she looked especially tired. Those small gestures became our strange little friendship. We talked about ordinary things, the weather, books, music, the old couple who came in every Sunday morning. But beneath those conversations was something neither of us had the courage to name. Then one evening, Claire didn't come. I waited the next night. Then the next. A week became a month. I eventually heard from someone that her family had moved away after a difficult situation involving her father's business. Nobody knew where she had gone. I told myself it didn't matter. She had been a customer, after all. But every time someone ordered tomato soup and grilled cheese, I looked toward that corner booth without thinking. Years passed. My father died. I took over the diner alone. I repaired the broken sign, replaced the cracked windows, and slowly turned the little restaurant into something that could survive. Life became a collection of routines: open at 6, close at 10, count the cash, wash the floors, go home, sleep, repeat. I stopped expecting Claire. Then, on a rainy Thursday night, she came back. She looked nervous as she stood near the entrance. Her hair was shorter, a few silver strands visible near her temples. She wore a simple gray coat and held an old handbag against her chest as if it contained something precious. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she smiled faintly and said the words that broke through 10 years of silence, "You still remember my order." I stared at her and felt something inside me ache. I looked toward the corner booth and told her that some things were difficult to forget. She sat down. I didn't ask where she had been. I went into the kitchen and prepared the meal myself. Tomato soup. Grilled cheese. Extra pickles. Coffee with 2 sugars. When I placed it in front of her, her eyes filled with tears. She explained that she had left because her father had lost almost everything. Her family had moved 3 states away, and she had spent years caring for her sick mother. She had wanted to return many times, but every year brought another crisis. Eventually, embarrassment became stronger than courage. She convinced herself that too much time had passed. Then she told me why she had finally come back. Her mother had died 6 months earlier. While cleaning out her mother's apartment, Claire had discovered a small envelope addressed to her. Inside was a photograph of the diner and a handwritten note. Her mother had known how much Claire had loved coming there and had remembered the kindness of the young man behind the counter who always noticed when her daughter was having a difficult day. The note contained only one simple thought: go back to the places where you were treated gently. Claire said she had carried those words for months. But there was something else. She opened her handbag and pulled out an old diner receipt. The paper was faded almost white. I recognized it immediately. It was from her final visit 10 years earlier. On the back, in my handwriting, were 5 words: "You don't have to explain." I had written them because she had apologized that night for being quiet and distant. I hadn't even remembered doing it. Claire looked at me and admitted that those words had stayed with her. She had carried the receipt through 3 homes and 2 states. For the first time, I understood that the small kindnesses I had barely noticed had mattered to someone far more deeply than I could have imagined. We spent the next hour talking. Not about lost romance or what might have happened if she had stayed. We talked about life. About grief. About mistakes. About how people sometimes disappear not because they stop caring, but because they don't know how to return. Before she left, she asked whether the corner booth was still available. I told her it always had been. She smiled. Over the next few weeks, Claire returned every Thursday. At first, she came alone. Then she began helping me after closing, organizing old photographs, repainting the walls, and laughing whenever I complained about the diner clock being 5 minutes slow. Slowly, the diner changed. So did I. But the greatest change wasn't that Claire had returned. It was that I had finally learned something my father had tried to teach me years ago: kindness isn't measured by how big the gesture feels to you. Sometimes the smallest act becomes a shelter someone remembers for the rest of their life. One evening, Claire placed her empty coffee cup on the counter and told me she had been afraid that coming back would reopen old wounds. Instead, she had found a place where she could finally stop running from them. I looked around the diner. The rain tapped softly against the windows. The old neon sign buzzed outside. Nothing looked extraordinary. But somehow, everything felt different. 10 years ago, I thought I was serving soup, coffee, and sandwiches to a tired woman sitting alone in a corner booth. I never realized I was giving her a memory of being seen. And sometimes, that is the kindest gift one human being can give another. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories about kindness, hope, and unexpected reunions. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need their message today. And before we end, I have a special request. Comment: kindness is never forgotten, if you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life. Because 10 years taught me something I will never forget. People may forget the meals you served, the money you spent, or the conversations you had. But they rarely forget how you made them feel when they were struggling. And sometimes, after years of silence, they come back simply to remind you that your kindness mattered. Writing. The woman who walked into my clinic that Monday morning looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. Designer coat, expensive watch, 2 assistants waiting outside, and a calm expression that made the entire waiting room fall silent. She walked straight toward my desk, placed a folder in front of me, and said something so unbelievable that I thought I had misheard her. "You have until Friday to marry me." I stared at her, completely speechless. I was a small-town doctor who still drove an old car and lived above my clinic. She was the heiress to one of the largest business empires in the country. We had never dated. We barely knew each other. Yet she had apparently crossed half the city to make me an offer that could change both our lives. Before we get into the story, if you believe kindness, second chances, and unexpected moments can change a person's life, please like this story, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the most unbelievable